Hi, and welcome back to this 12th edition of Biovision Forum on the hashtag of Biovision. Biovision is more than 150 experts, academics, and also Greg Pery, who's sitting next to me. You can take the microphone, Executive Director of Medicine Patent Pool. Is that it?
That's right.
So you're here to talk about the global health to One Health, which is the main issue of Biovision Forum and the closing issue. We were talking now before starting our interview about TB. Tuberculosis is back?
Oh, correct. And it's been there for some time. Two aspects to this. The occurrences of TB are becoming much more prevalent than they were, for example, in Europe. They're also extremely prevalent in developing countries. Yeah?
In developing countries?
In developing countries.
How come?
Well, in developing countries, there is often lack of serviceability from a healthcare providing point of view. Obviously, this is poverty related, and obviously it's related to other diseases. So, for example, people living with HIV are more susceptible to getting TB, and the relationship with the two is very high. And that's one of the issues that my organization is particularly interested to see how we can help the development of new TB drugs, particularly for MDR TB, multi-drug resistant TB, and how we can ensure that these treatments are going to be available in developing countries. And let's remember, in developing countries, they have very high prevalence, a lot of diseases, including non-communicable diseases, including cancer and oncology issues. So for me, when we talk about global health to One Health, it also includes developing countries, not developed countries.
Because developing countries has much more problems.
Yes, they have the distribution of the problems are higher in developing countries than they are in developed countries. Now, it doesn't mean at all that we shouldn't be concentrating on developed countries. But I think it's what I love about Biovision is the energy, the creativity. Everything here seems to be on the edge of new ideas, innovation, the number of young people here, and it's fantastic. And I think from Biovision, you will get more innovations. That's the whole idea. What I think I would like, not just me, but I think in general, is the importance that this creativity and these innovations are transferred to developing countries as well.
Because we're not talking enough of those developing countries. What are the main dangers now for developing countries?
Well, traditionally, of course, the developing countries have been focused on HIV, now hepatitis C, on TB. More and more, the issue now we're hearing is what was called Western diseases. For some time are now growing, cancer, diabetes. These are all issues now which are becoming more and more prevalent in developing countries. The demand, for example, to deal with cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer, particularly in developing countries in Africa, is huge. Yeah, and this is one of the things that we need to address.
And how do you do?
My organization, we're quite specific, quite niche. Our aim is to accelerate new innovative treatments to developing countries through what is we call patent sharing or patent pooling. We have agreements with IP holders and originator companies to see how we can access those medicines to developing countries through partnership agreements with generic companies. Our model works in HIV, it's now in hepatitis C, we're looking at TB, and we're seeing how we can go into other areas such as oncology and diabetes. But it's a partnership model. It's very much a partnership model with industry.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you, Greg Pery, Executive Director of Medicine Patent Pool. We will follow you today at the closing station of Biovision from Global Health to One Health, which just saw now a brilliant example of this problematic. Now, see you with next guest. And now it's Randy Schekman, Randy W. Schekman. Please have a seat. Professor of Cell and Development Biology, Department of Molecular and Cell Biology at the University of California, Berkeley. You were the Nobel Prize in Physiology of Medicine in 2007. Very impressive to have you next to me. Hi, Professor.
Good to be here.
I call you Professor?
You can call me by my first name if you wish.
Okay, Randy, oh, no, I can't. You're here, Professor, to talk about this main issue, which is the main issue of this 12th edition of Biovision Forum, from global health to One Health. What is One Health today? What is it?
Well, my own expertise is in basic science. So my mission here is to help people understand the role that basic science has in the development of our health systems. Basic science continues to be the foundation of advances in medical science. And people and governments need to have an ever greater appreciation of what basic science has done and what it continues to do. Because unfortunately, governments need constantly to be educated about what science is and what basic science is. All of the discoveries that go into the pharmaceutical industry have their origin in the laboratory. I'll give you one example that you may know of that's enormously important. There have been recent developments just in the past few years, including through the efforts of a French scientist to develop something called CRISPR, CRISPR-Cas9, which is a way of editing the genome of organisms, including humans. Emmanuel Charpentier is a French scientist who made an important fundamental discovery in how bacteria ward off their own virus infections. This is something that would be hard for people to appreciate has any value. And yet, from her discovery came a technology that now can be applied to agriculture, to human health, in ways that could not have been anticipated even just 4 years ago. And it relied on an investment by public institutions in her work and the work of other laboratories in Europe and elsewhere in this basic fundamental discovery.
But what you mean, as if I can understand, is that the problem is policies, is politics,
Well,
is the mentality?
it's education.
Education.
It's education because
But that's a deeper problem.
well, it's a continuing effort. People need to appreciate what science is, what it can do, and what it has done. And there are so many examples of that every year that provide opportunities for people like me to go and explain and to encourage an appreciation of that. Because without that investment of public funds in the science that goes on in universities and laboratories around the world, the technological developments that you and I and our families rely on would never happen. And the examples of the sort that I mentioned of Professor Charpentier are amazing in their impact, and they will.
But we underestimated.
It wasn't possible to even anticipate this 4 years ago, and that's the nature of science. It's unpredictable, and so it requires a constant investment, public support, just to keep it going.
So what you're saying is that we have to focus on research, we have to focus on educated people to those problematic which are linked, animal health, human health, and environment. But what could be the simplest example? One of your colleagues yesterday was saying that maybe we should ask people to don't eat meat anymore. But is that a key or?
Well, that's a bit of an extreme. Certainly one should modify one's meat intake, but there are many simple health things that one should do. One should watch one's weight, one should exercise. There are many basic things like that. But even with the best of one's personal behavior, health issues are always going to be a problem. And as we live longer, as a result of good public health policies, other diseases, such as neurodegenerative diseases, become more prevalent. We will face a crisis in the years ahead in dealing with the aging population and the inevitable problems of brain disease that accompany the aging process. Alzheimer's disease is going to be an enormous burden on our public health systems. And yet, because there still isn't a way of treating that, we are going to suffer enormously. We need more basic understanding of that disease and how to treat it. Right now, there's really nothing.
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 We do not realize the danger of brain disease.
Well, we realize the danger, but it's inexorable.
It's not enough.
We need more investment. We need more understanding of the basic process of the disease. The ideas about how it develops may all be wrong. And
What
yet,
we should do? What should we do?
well, there needs to be an appreciation of the value of understanding the mechanism of the disease and not merely the drug discovery. You have to understand the molecular basis of a disease before you can really
Prevent.
attack. I mean, for instance, cancer therapy. Cancer chemotherapy has advanced tremendously in recent years, and it's largely the result of scientists who have understood the basic molecular mechanisms of the variety of cancers. So the treatments are now more targeted than they ever were. And 10 years ago or more, cancer was treated with poisons that basically kill all dividing cells. But now we have targeted therapies. We have targeted immunotherapy and targeted chemical therapy, all as a result of basic scientists understanding the molecular basis of the disease.
So understand the molecular to prevent our next step. Thank you, Professor. It was very, very impressive. Randy Schekman here for the Global Health to One Health. We'll see you after the closing session.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And now, next guest.